Welcome to MSP Unplugged, Destroy or Wipe It. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. We want to go ahead and push out our normal call to action is our event we're having in September 17th to 19th, my favorite, TechCon Unplugged. It is going to be in the beautiful Aloft Hotel over in Chicago, Illinois, or for those that are in Chicago, Rosemont, Illinois, right on the outskirts. But we're going to make it easy for you to get there, whether you're flying, driving, or taking the train. It's going to be a great public transportation and easy transportation to get there. Tickets are going to be $199. And what does that get you? We'll make sure that we're going to feed you well. That's going to include a Friday night and a Saturday night social. Friday night will be in the hotel. Saturday night will be at Dave & Buster's like we had in 2019 when we were in Grand Rapids. And then we will make sure to take care of you for breakfast and lunch. So you're going to be fed well. You're going to have a lot of great, not only just peer-to-peer conversations, but a lot of great, excellent vendors that are going to be there as well. We have quite a few that have signed up, and I can tell you that I'm very excited that there are some returning and there are some that are new that will be joining us, and it's going to be a great time. So if you have not purchased your ticket yet, I know every organizer says purchase your ticket now before it gets sold out. However, as everyone knows, there are restrictions going on in certain cities and states. So we will probably meet capacity. We're about a little over half of where we need to be for that list. If we happen to sell out, we will have a waiting list for you to be on. And then essentially, if we are able to open up, if restrictions get lightened up, then we will make sure to address and reach out to everyone on that list so that you can join the fun. So if you were at TechCon Unplugged in 2019, you know about all the great stuff that we had there. We're looking to expand it. So if you don't want to miss it again, I really encourage you to purchase your ticket. Head over again to techconunplugged.com. And you'll be able to find all the details there. We will have some updates by the end of the month on the vendors that have signed on and the additional content that we have. All right. So unfortunately, Jeff is having some technical difficulties today, as we have had in the past with StreamYard. And I think it's just, the nature of the beast with a lot of the updates happening with browsers, the systems, etc. But I wanted to jump in and really talk with and introduce Paul Katzoff the couch. And he is from White Canyon Software. We're going to be diving into really what Paul's been up to and how he got into the industry with his origin story. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the company and really highlight one of the products that, or the product that White Canyon Software develops, which is WipeDrive. Did I get that correct? So I will go ahead and turn it over to Paul. This may end up being a shorter show because I do have a little bit of a smaller crunch on time. However, if the engagement in the conversation is well, I will not make sure to short anyone who is enjoying the conversation. So with that being said, Paul, I will go ahead and kick it off to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got into the industry and then found your way to White Canyon?
Sounds good, Paco. Thank you first off for having me on MSP Unplugged. I appreciate it. It's great to be here with you and your audience. I love the chance to talk with you about White Canyon Software and our main product, WipeDrive. Just a quick backstory, I guess, on myself. I did my undergraduate out at BYU, Hawaii, which was beautiful. Lots of surf and lots of fun. Decided to kind of grow up, got my MBA up at Utah State. And I was looking around trying to find a good fit and good industry. And I came across computers and just that whole technology side. And I felt like that is the future. Everything's going to go towards computers. Let's get into that. So I got a job here at White Canyon actually 13 years ago. Started off in tech support, and I worked Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. and just took tech support calls every day. And it was back in 08, 07, right after the big
market
boom.
Yeah.
So any job was good, and worked my way up to support manager, then to enterprise support manager, which we had just barely started back then. And then after a while, that kind of got boring after about 2 years. And I said, all right, let me try something new. Let me try something different. And jumped into sales for White Canyon Software. So I started selling on the enterprise side, and I loved it. It was just so great to work with customers, find out their issues. We're in a nice little niche of data erasure. And so we get calls from the big boys, Citibank, Albertsons, Holiday Inn, the Fortune 500 would call and talk to me on the phone. And it was just so great. I worked with a great VP of sales at the time. And I just kind of learned how enterprise sales worked. And it was just a great kind of consultative sell. Did that for 7, 8 years. Then I decided to kind of strike off on my own, kind of prove myself in the market. I've been with one company, most of my career. So I headed off, jumped through a couple of different companies over about 2 years. And then White Canyon called me up and said, hey, we have an executive position available if you'd like it. We know you have an MBA. You were great here. We want to have you come back. And 3 years ago, I came back as a CEO. And it's been great. My focus is kind of the digital marketing, digital presence side. That's why I'm on this podcast and others, is to kind of just get the word out about WipeDrive, talk about data destruction, which is going perfect with just the data issues and data kind of integrity problems we have lately. And it's just been a fun ride. I can't say anything more about it than it's been great.
Gotcha. Now, White Canyon is located where again?
We're just south of Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay.
We've been in business for 23 years, going back to 1997. We started with a little 3.5-inch floppy diskette that erased your computer, and the Air Force certified it way back when. So it went all over the globe, and then from there, all these Air Force techs took it into the commercial world, to the enterprise world, and we just kind of grew from that point. So it's been a great run.
Very cool. Very cool. No, so I guess, one of the questions probably our audience is going to ask is, you went from Hawaii to Utah. So how did that happen and why?
When I lived in Utah, we would get, first off, when I lived in Hawaii, you would get news clips of like the mainland, and it'd show like blizzards and snow, and it'd be mid-January, it'd be 76 degrees, sunny. And you'd look at the news and you'd be like, why do people live there? What's going on? But the opportunity came out here, and just felt like there on the island, you get, there's just kind of the hotel business. That's about it. And I wanted to get into technology and something that grows in the future. And it's just a natural transition to move back to the mainland. But yeah.
No, that makes sense. I figured I asked because, you hear a lot of people saying in the reverse, right? That they are here and they're moving down to the warmer climates. We have a friend of ours, Marvin B, on the old network we used to be on Podnuts Pro, that he's always talking about the Florida weather. So, our good friend here of the community, John Dubinsky, recently just sold his business from Grand Rapids. He moved down to Florida. So, you always hear the reverse. So that's why I was curious on that. But that makes sense, right? I think that, and then just really, it's interesting your experience and what you've got. You were in the so-called trenches. You were the boots on the ground to understand like what clients' issues were going, and then growing your way up to in the position you're at now. I guess for my question, and we can kick it off to your main product of WipeDrive, is let me make a step back, is how did White Canyon Software make, I don't know if it's a pivot or the attention to the channel and the MSP and the IT business market, because it sounds like there was a lot of enterprise business coming through for White Canyon. What made at least the channel, or in our realm, kind of a new avenue for White Canyon to start reaching out and seeing as a segment for you guys?
Yeah. So with any business, you got to keep your ear to the ground and kind of be aware of what's going on in the market. And what we saw, and this is what MSPs kind of solve for a lot of companies, is IT managers have just too much on their shoulders, too much to do. And so they look out for MSPs to come in and help them, or small companies can't afford an IT manager, and they say, hey, let's bring in a managed service provider to kind of help us in that middle stage before we hire someone full-time or assist someone that's full-time already. And what we saw in that realm is there's a headache at end of life for your drives and your computers. The data breaches that are going on, the financial penalties that are happening with GDPR and HIPAA, and the focus has kind of gone to the data and said, okay, my laptop that my tech uses over in the cubicles, he's leaving, it's an old computer, I'm going to dump it. But what's on that computer? Is there PHI? Is there something on there that when it leaves my facility, all of a sudden I'm going to get a call 2 years from now, which is it's hard to like focus on that kind of future. But I'm going to get a call 2 years from now saying, hey, there's 50 records on here. It's $50,000 a record. You now owe us $250,000 or more than that, $2.5 million. And that's that. You have to pay this penalty or this fine. And so this kind of awareness and awakening to the potential of issues and potential of the data on drives has kind of pushed us into the MSP market. And it's also helped us to kind of get rid of the whole destruction side of devices. Data erasure is nothing new. It's been around since the tape days, since the 70s and 80s. And one of the biggest jokes is take the drive outside and hit it with a hammer or put a drill through it and you're good to go.
Right.
But what I like nowadays is there's the environmental impact is kind of taken into account now and saying, hey, where's all these metals going to go into? Is it just going to go to the landfill? Is it just going to rust? Is there a use for this beyond me? Yeah, it's a 120 gigabyte drive or it's a 1 terabyte drive, but are there useful methods for it out there? Are there people out there, charities that will take this and give to people that don't have a computer or a drive and be able to kind of reuse that in a sense somewhere else in the market or somewhere else, even in the world?
Sure.
And so that's kind of where we've been sucked into. The MSPs are a great market. We love working with them. And they've done a great job of just kind of providing a solution for all their clients, saying, hey, at end of life, here's something that's going to remove your potential headache, remove your worry, here's an assurance, and here's your reporting saying, hey, all these devices are erased. Now you can do whatever you want with them, but you're safe on your side.
Sure. Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, I think the go-to is usually the sledgehammer, the drill, the impact drill. They're even selling these, I forgot what they're called, but like these big honking thing where you slide the hard drive in and destroy it there.
Yeah.
But you do run into two problems. You have the first one where, like you mentioned, the environmental waste. Where is it going? How can it go? Can it be reused in different avenues, whether it's e-waste or donations and things of that nature? But two, certifying or proving that you did erase those drives, right? And sometimes, you resort to an official like letterhead statement, but that may not be enough, right? To prove that it's been erased properly. So I guess this may be a segue to going into, what are you all doing with WipeDrive and how has that been making things easier for, let's say, MSPs like myself, utilizing WipeDrive in some way, shape or form if we decided to go that route?
Sure. I mean, let's say you get called on site to a client's, warehouse, and they say, "Hey, I didn't tell you this, but I have a whole bunch of computers that need to get erased." And he flips on the light, and there's 500 devices sitting there that need to get erased. And the first thought that goes through your mind is, "This is going to take my tech or myself, 40 hours or 120 hours to get through these devices."
Yeah.
So the first thing we did was, "Hey, let's make this efficient." So we allow you to set up a workstation, set up a workbench, and Pixie boot all these devices. So you can Pixie boot 50, 100, 200 devices at the same time. So right there, you get that economy of scale where you can kind of push these computers through the erasure process. When they finish, they beep or the CD drive ejects, or it says on the screen with a big green check mark, "Hey, we're done." Your tech goes over, unplugs it, puts in the next laptop, turns it on, it boots up and starts running. And so the first thing we did is just that efficiency, let you kind of get that throughput going so you can erase, high volumes at one time. And then on your side, you can get those reports back to the main system, to your server, email, and then you can process, the reports and make sure all the devices have been wiped and that sort of thing. So that was our first focus right off the bat, is make it easy for MSPs that are going to be surprised by what their client asks them to do it quickly.
Gotcha. Okay. And now, and then a little bit more on detail as far as like WipeDrive and why someone would use it. And now, is this more, I would imagine, obviously this is a software that a MSP would use, or is it a service combined with the software to handle the erasure with a volume of that nature, whether it's that big or that small?
We're just a software tool. We just focus on the data erasure and providing the software that works perfectly for you with the certifications that we have and provide you with reports. That's all we focus on. If you do need a third party or an ITAD or referral, we work with, I think it's somewhere around 175 ITADs in the US. Okay. So wherever you are, we can refer you to one close by you that can show up they'll take those devices, process them with WipeDrive, and provide those certificates back to you, so you don't have to do the actual work yourself. But we're just the software focus on our side.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Now, is the software, and I don't know how much you can get into as far as like the model and how it works. I imagine that it is going to be booting into an environment that is non-OS agnostic. So you can wipe it, whether it's a Windows PC, Mac PC, etc. I imagine it's going through some type of pre-environment versus on the system itself to make that wipe, and then slash, does it have to be an actual PC that's booting up, or can you do some type of like a daisy chain of like a dock connected to a PC to do multiple drives in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the deployment of WipeDrive kind of covers all those kind of gamut. So right off the bat, as far as the docking in the loose drives, we can do that for you. We have an appliance we call a Flex Station. It has 26 bays on it. So you can just plug in the drives into that Flex Station and run it. Or sorry, 24 bays, and you're good to go. It's going to go through and erase all those drives. Hey, Jeff, how's it going? Thanks for joining.
Hey, Paul. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Sorry.
Oh, man.
Gotta love it.
Let me jump back into the answer real quick. So as far as the deployments go, there's all those types of deployments that we can do for you to make it simple and make it easy on your end. But overall for us, it is just the technology behind it is to kind of, it's changing. Data storage is changing. As you know, we're up to 16 terabytes. It's going to go to 32. It's going to keep growing. How do you access and manage all this data quickly? And that's the next big headache. SSDs, if MSPs didn't know this, cannot be degaussed. You try and degauss an SSD, all the data is still fine. You're going to think it's done, it's cleared like a regular platter-based drive, and you're going to discard it or sell it or throw it away, and your data is still going to be on there. So there's lots of technology changes that we're kind of staying up to par on our side, and letting our clients know and MSPs know, so they don't, accidentally put themselves at risk.
So this is more of an education piece on mine. Degaussed, it means it defined as what again for the SSDs? Yeah.
Sure. It's just a giant magnet. They put the hard drives underneath, and that giant magnet on the hard drives, platter-based drives, they are based on magnetic kind of zeros and ones, and that degausser just ruins that device, and it's you cannot capture or recover any data off of it. And like I said, with with flash drives, SSDs, that data is still there.
Roger that. Gotcha. Okay. And then, so, speaking more on how White Canyon operates and with WipeDrive, is WipeDrive available to the public? Is it channel only? How is someone like an IT business or an MSP would like to enroll in getting into WipeDrive? How is that process going?
We're in the channel, but we also sell direct. So just come to our website, wipedrive.com is our main website. What's really nice on our side, at the beginning of the pandemic, we decided to offer our home version for free for anyone at home. So if you go to our website, there's a coupon code. You can enter that in, and you can run one use for free. If you need more than that on the MSP side, the volumes, we have the discounts for you. Just you can reach out to our sales reps or purchase online, whatever works for you on your side.
Gotcha. So there's a technician essentially license or a process to kind of run.
Yeah, we have a bunch of those. Whatever fits. We have so many different clients that we talk to and work in different ways that we have a bunch of different licenses that fit exactly what you need.
Gotcha. So essentially, it sounds like you can purchase it right off the website, or we can call your team to kind of get a better understanding of like what are our individual needs, what we're looking to kind of achieve, and then they can help us kind of, I wouldn't say white glove, but essentially help guide us on what product, what way we should handle a particular erasure.
Yeah, I mean, if it's Saturday morning, you need the erasure, you can just buy it from our website, start running it, and go from there. If you're a high volume client with like 10,000, 150,000 drives per year, you probably want some customizations in there so you can keep track of the detailed information, which device, computer ID, asset tag numbers, information like that. And so we have about 155 customizations inside WipeDrive. So we can go through those and kind of make WipeDrive exactly the tool you want, so you can deploy it and you get the results exactly as you want on your side. And we cut out any extra time and any extra tasks that we have to run if you don't really want those. So that's the plus side of talking to the sales reps. We'll make sure you get the right version, tailored to yourself and your environment.
Gotcha. So with that being said, I think that we've talked a lot about the IT businesses and MSPs. I would imagine computer repair shops have been taking advantage of your software as well, correct? With a lot of bits coming in and things of that nature. Can you talk a little bit more on how has that been beneficial? Maybe any case studies or stories you've heard from these type of industries, with computer repair shops or MSPs on some of the other products that they've tried, and then they've gone to WipeDrive and it's solved the issue that they were looking into.
Yeah. The main issue they come across is trying to figure out what's wrong with that device. And what's nice with the WipeDrive tool, we have a Datalis tool and feature that goes with it. And what Datalis does is we test every single component of that computer, whether it's the RAM, the battery life. If it's a touchscreen laptop, we put up little squares on there, and you touch all those squares. You touch every single key. We test all the USB connections. We test every part of that device, and then we give you a report of what's working, what's not. So on the computer repair side, it's a quick way to say, hey, A, B, and C isn't working well. Let me, maybe this RAM is junky. Let me throw this out. Let me upgrade and get this computer up and going. Let me figure that out. So we tie that with the erasure, or you can just run it on your own if you just want to do the diagnostic side.
Very cool. So it can even be used as a diagnostic tool included inside the data erasure as well. Very cool. Jeff, any questions to throw in?
Not that, no, I didn't hear the whole conversation, so not that I can think of at this point. I think it sounded from what I heard that everything was pretty much covered.
We try to a point. We try to get. We've worked with so many. Like I said, we've been around for 23 years, so we work with so many companies. 44 of the Fortune 100 use us. 23 of the Fortune 50. These guys are just doing such gigantic volumes that we've had to do a lot of customizations with WipeDrive. And what that means is for the small players, all these customizations are available for them as well. So regardless of your environment, if all of a sudden you get a server that you need to erase, we probably already erased that server for a data center out in Texas. So when you run WipeDrive, you're going to get that compatibility. You can boot it, run it, get those reports off of it, of the erasure, and go from there. If there are already headaches, we have a full-time support team here in Utah. That's one of our biggest boasts, I guess, or brags, is everything's done here in Utah. Our development, our sales, support, everything's here. Our source code's never left the U.S. We've never outsourced to Pakistan or Afghanistan or anywhere like that. And so our source code is secure, and that's why we have so many government contracts. That's kind of, one of our biggest advantages on our side, or our boasts, I guess.
I do want to ask, I know a lot of people will talk about when they wipe a drive, what type of wipe does that drive need? And everybody, there's government standards and all this kind of stuff that people think about. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of, I don't know, maybe not misinformation, just not the exact information that an individual needs in order to properly wipe their drive. And then the other thing too, and I know you guys do this, you guys have certificates, obviously, after the drive is wiped so that they can present that to their end customer and get that taken care of. But I mean, what types, when you're thinking about wiping a drive from a government standpoint, or making sure that the data can absolutely not be gotten to, what are the standards for that, and how does that work compared to maybe some other things?
Sure. So back in 2006, the DoD came out with the infamous 3-pass, the DoD 3-pass and the DoD 7-pass. And pretty much what this was is an override of zeros over every sector and every byte, override of ones, and then a full verify, and then, a random character, characters put through on the device, and then a full verify of that device on the DoD 3. DoD 7 was similar, but just repeated multiple times on that one. That worked great, and that was what the standard was for a good, almost 10 years, probably about 7 years. That was a good standard. But when SSDs came out, UCSD did an amazing study where they took a SSD, they did a DoD 3 overwrite with it, and what happens is the SSD actually has an area or space on the drive. Let's say it's a 120 gigabyte drive. It's actually a 150 gigabyte drive. And that extra space wasn't being addressed properly. The manufacturers weren't allowing drive wipe tools and others to access that area. And so if you did a chip-off attack, all of a sudden you're finding tax documents, corporate data, HIPAA information, PHI, all on these SSDs. And that blew up, and it said, okay, well, what do? This DoD-3 has been the given for about 7 years. What should we do now? And what's great is NIST came out. They assembled a bunch of experts from across the industry, the manufacturers, the end users everywhere, different agencies, and they said, okay, there's SSDs, there's issues. What do we do now? And they came out with the NIST 888, which pretty much states that a single overwrite using the ATA commands, sanitize disk or secure erase, reaching a purge level, means that all the data on that device is gone. And what that also meant is that the manufacturers have to meet that ATA command on those devices as well on their side, as far as the firmware level goes. So that was a standard that came out probably about 6 or 7 years ago. There's been a couple revisions of it, but that's pretty much the basic, is the NIST single overwrite, which for a lot of people and a lot of corporations, they're used to the DoD-3. And the first thing they say is, wait, I'm going from 3 to 1. Are you guys sure about this? How do I make sure that I'm doing the single overwrite that on an SSD? I mean, they scream. You could have it done in 25 minutes. How do I make sure that there's no data on there? And that's where the certifications have come in. That's where the ATA commands and the verification tools out there have kind of come along to say, hey, all that data is gone. Here's methods for you to test it. And now that you have your reassurance, you can run it on all your SSDs and be safe and know that your data is gone. It's kind of where that's gone to on our side.
Well, that's really great information. But gents, I got to jump off because I have a hard stop. But Jeff, I will let you carry on the conversation. Paul, you're obviously in good hands, but really great information. And especially with that DoD, with the new NIST requirement, that makes it a lot easier with just one pass versus having those multiple as well. But I'll leave you two to it, but I will see you all then.
Thanks, Paco. Appreciate it. All right. So with that being said, so when we're looking at, and I've been kind of suspicious of when the DoD came out with their three wipe and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, if you are overwriting every sector and every byte and bit with ones and zeros and wiping that particular sector out, there's really nothing you're going to get back. But you gave the greatest explanation, because I've heard that before about SSDs, but I had totally forgotten it until you brought it back up. So that they do have that extra space, because they have to build that in just for the nature of the SSD and how it operates, which makes sense. So if the manufacturer has that stuff blocked out, then you're fine. But there's being overlooked. The manufacturer is saying, hey, we built it this way. And then they said, oh, well, with an ATA command, we're going to allow you to access the full drive. But they didn't really make those ATA commands complete or even work, or some manufacturers didn't even include it in their drive, in the SSDs. And so what happened is you have all these SSDs hit the resale market, and these ITADs go to erase them, and they finish the erasure, and they go and test them, and they're like, hey, there's still data here. And they come to us and saying, hey, it's your fault. You didn't erase this drive. We're looking at the drive saying, well, we did everything we could. The manufacturer's not letting you into the device, or letting us into the device to erase it. And yeah, it's interesting. It's just a start, though. I think SSDs are here. We have NVMe drives. We have the M2 chip. Data storage is going to continue to kind of progress, and we're going to have to always have like a cat and mouse game, making sure that we can erase everything is what's going to happen. Now, does the ability to wipe a drive change going from NVMe or the M.2 socket or the regular SSD, SATA socket? Does that matter, or is it pretty much done the same way? It's done close to the same way. You want to reach the same purge level, but there are little tricks for companies like ourselves that we have to kind of kick around with for each manufacturer and for everything we come across. So on our side, it's not an easy, plug it. It works on M.2. You're fine. You're all good. It's okay. This device came up with some data on it, or potential data. What is that data? Where is it? What's going on in this? And so we're constantly kind of doing that cat and mouse game, because there's such a wide group of hardware out there, and we're trying to cover the gamut of it. But overall, it's typically to the same level. There's just some little tweaks we do on our side to make sure it works. So I guess with that being said, you're going more in depth with your customization levels to make sure that each and every device is handled individually. And I understand that there's a lot of like devices out there, but somebody might come up with a brand new device, and you guys have obviously already looked into it and said, okay, here's how we access this data. Here's how we get rid of this data. Here's how we make sure that we know this thing is wiped and we're good to go.
Yeah, we have partnerships with a lot of the large manufacturers. So when they come out with something new, we get that in the mail. We start kicking the tires on it and see how it works. If it's a big issue, we'll kind of say, hey, this is a priority. This is coming out in 3 months. How are we going to get this work in the meantime? We'll work with the manufacturer, reach out to them, have some discussions on how to access it appropriately, and then go from there. So it's a fun game. It's day in, day out, something new, which is great. But overall, it is just staying at that peak level, because the second you start falling behind, that's when others have headaches. You get calls from the ITADs and other secondhand processors, and our job is to make sure all that data is gone on every device. That's our responsibility.
That's very good. And so when you're looking at these devices and you're looking at the landscape out there, and people are wiping their drives, what is the general rule of thumb? Are people reusing a lot of these drives, or what are they doing with them?
A lot of them sell them on eBay or other locations, or even ship them overseas. Here an 80 gigabyte hard drive doesn't really mean much to us. You could be tiny. Yeah, that's one video,
Right.
But overseas, South America, the market is large, and actually the cost is so low for these devices. It actually gives the ability to build devices down there for the local population that, these third world countries. So it's actually a huge benefit not to shred or to destroy these devices. There is this kind of a second-hand market, even a third-hand and fourth-hand market out there. Just those devices aren't typically getting all the way there. We just kind of get lazy on our side and say, I'll just throw this away, or I'll shred it and go from there.
I know a particular story for me is it was probably about 50 hard drives that I'd saved up over the years from different customers and stuff. And most of them weren't working. There were probably some that were working, but I said, they were small drives, 60 gigabyte, 80 gigabyte drives. Yeah. And so I knew it was going to take me hours to do this. And I basically, one day I just sat down and said, okay, I started putting these things in a vise, and I started drilling them, and kind of feeling bad that I'm basically throwing all of this in the landfill. And it's like, these probably could have been used for something or other, at least the parts from it or something, to help.
Well, even, when it goes into the landfill, you're also losing the precious metals in those devices as well. So, there's two avenues to go there. One is, if they're failing and not working, they're physically malfunctioning, there's nothing you can do there. You're not going to go in there and take it apart and rebuild the heads and rebuild the whole device to make it work. The best thing there is to either, on your end, is to find an ITAD that will take it from you. They'll shred it down. They'll take the precious metals. They'll take all the different parts of it and try and recycle most of it. They get about 63% of those metals recycled, which is pretty good on a typical hard drive based drive, HDD. The other realm is just to kind of look for a recycling center around you that will handle and take drives and see if they'll process that as well. Our big headache is just the landfill. Once it goes in there, it starts rusting. It sits there for however many years for it to degrade and corrode. And there's so many devices. I think it's somewhere around 100 billion devices out there, and they got to go somewhere. And if we can get that. There's been a big push by the big Fortune 3 about a circular economy. If you look at their annual reports and everything, they're looking at all their devices and saying, hey, our devices hit the end of life, and then what happens after that? Can we reuse them? Can we recycle them? Can we rebuild devices from those old devices, or shredding up the devices and turning them into the raw materials and go from there? I love that push. I think that's where we're going to get to in the next, it'll probably be 50 years before we get there, let's be honest. But just getting there and having these devices kind of reused will just limit the e-waste that gets out there, which will be a plus.
Yeah, that's the other hard thing I find, depending on the area you're in, is getting a recycler or somebody to handle that stuff. Because a lot of times these companies that do, I've got several around me, and I can't get any of them to take basically a truckload of stuff. They're like, yeah, no, you're too small. We take all the corporate stuff apart and we deal with all that stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't really want any money for this stuff. I just want to get rid of it responsibly. And you're really not into doing that, even though you have all these certifications and stuff like that. But
so in that situation, we'd say reach out to us. We have, like I mentioned earlier, we have a whole bunch of ITADs, 150, 175 throughout the U.S. Talk to us. We can refer you to an ITAD or find someone that specializes in that e-waste. There are different specialties on all these different secondhand processors. Some are more focused on the metals, some are focused on the electronic side, and we can help you find a place to kind of donate them or give it away, or maybe even possibly sell it for a little bit of income, some revenue there. But we have a whole list that we can kind of refer and help others kind of find a place, because on our side, that's the importance here. Data erasure allows you to reuse it. At some point, it's not going to be reusable. What do you do then? How do you keep these from just going to that landfill?
That's awesome. No, I definitely appreciate that, because that in and of itself is hard information to find, even on this vast internet that we have.
Yeah, it's getting convoluted out there. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's you get down many rabbit holes and you get stuck on Facebook and
YouTube videos, you name it, you're gone.
Exactly. Speaking of hard drive sides, I just had to do this with a laptop. So I was trying to put a game on a laptop the other day, and it's my business laptop, and I had a little M.2 SSD, 256 gigs. And I thought, hey, for a laptop, I can access my OneDrive. I don't need any more than that. And I went to look, and it's like, yeah, 176 gigs left, and the game I was trying to download was 195 gigs. So I was like, that ain't gonna work. So I had to swap it out, and it's like, so I look at it now, and I look at the little 256, and I go, it's not really big. No. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with that.
Yeah. What do you do? Not even 1 terabyte drives? You're like, that's nice, but if I really start using this, like, it's gone in no time. And what I love, at least, is like the SSDs have kind of caught on to the 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte size, and so now they're screaming fast, and it's just, that area is so nice. Just where the technology is going. There's potential for hammer drives and mammer drives and all sorts of different, high volume, high density drives that come out. But can you imagine having a 64 terabyte SSD in your computer? Like, for us, we're like, what would that ever hold? But 10 years from now, you'd be like, it's so small and can't even use it.
Exactly. I remember my first computer, I had a 10 gigabyte hard drive on it back in 99. And I was like, oh, there's no way I can ever fill this up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here we are 21 years later.
It's great. I love where it's going. And it's gonna keep getting better. That's what I love about technology. That road just keeps going down. There's something new. There's something changing. There's something that just changes everything dynamically. There's minute changes. It's always happening. It's great.
It took a long time for me to switch over to SSDs. SSDs have been out for actually years. And a couple of my colleagues were like, dude, you got to go SSD. You got to try it. And I'm like, how much better can it really be? Blah, 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 And eventually, once I went to SSD, I'm like going, now I can't go back. My main computer has 0 spinning drives in it. I actually have 2. The only thing that sucks, and here's the reason why I didn't really want to go to SSD. I remember back in the day having multiple drives and having to make sure that how certain things were loaded onto certain drives so I could spread all the stuff out. And it's such a pain in the butt. But that's just kind of where we're at. So I've got a 1 terabyte NVMe. It's my main drive for my operating system. And then I've got two 2 terabyte SSDs that are in my system, and so I've got 5 terabytes, and right now that's plenty of room even with the stuff that I do. But yeah, I can see down the road where 5 terabytes is not even going to be that much space for stuff.
It just comes down to like the size of the video. We're going to 4K videos. Who knows what 8Ks after that? At some point, the size of these files just get bigger and bigger, and on our side, the storage just gets taken up in no time. So yeah, it's inevitable. It's coming.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of companies out there that do data storage. So I can see where this would be very important if they're doing any type of backup storage. And obviously, their drives are failing. They're having to get rid of these drives, but they have our information on there, right? Because we're using their services to back this stuff up. So obviously, the companies that are using you guys to wipe those drives, that makes us feel good inside, knowing that our information is not just getting out there or to some third world country or just out in the ether there somewhere.
Yeah. So, all of our data is going to data centers, to the cloud, to other places like that. And previously, the NIST 888's been around for a couple years, so they've been able to erase SSDs. But the standard in data centers has been to just shred old devices or old drives. And we're talking millions of data center server SSDs destroyed every year. And these are expensive devices. I mean, $150, $350 a pop. But the risk was too great, so they just started shredding them. And what's been great is the Fortune 3 has kind of taken a focus on this and said, hey, we know how many drives are getting shredded, or SSDs are getting shredded in these data centers. What can we do on the circular economy to kind of help these go into the secondhand market? So we've actually seen over the last 9 months or a year of them implementing the protocols and the testing to get those SSDs wiped. And what we're going to see is that not a flood, but those SSDs, instead of getting shredded and destroyed, they're going to enter the secondhand market. They're going to be allowed to get out of the data centers and be erased. And like you said, be erased by a tool that's trusted and certified, so that they know all the data is gone. And what's great for all of us is these companies are so big, they're not going to risk anything. They're going to run us and any other tool through the trials. They're going to test every single drive for a year before they even let one out. And then after that, when it's proven, you're going to see more of those come out of the data centers. And you'll also see the other Fortune 97, Fortune 500 follow suit and say, hey, those guys do it. It leaves, they're safe. It's been a year or two. Let's do it now as well. And we'll see more of those SSDs and kind of that reuse happen, which would be great.
That's awesome. We have a question from the chat room. This is from ProTech Guy. He says, is this a per wipe, a license fee, subscription, or perpetual?
Great question. So on the low end, we do a per wipe license, 20 licenses, it's $200. You get a dongle you can boot from and erase it and run it. So it's about $10 a wipe on that side. But we have customers that are doing, 250,000 wipes a year. We do a all-you-can-eat buffet for that license at a certain price for the whole year, or a 3-year term, whatever we want to do like that. We have a few old clients from back in the day in 06, 08 that have perpetuals. We don't typically do that anymore just because the cost of support, and we want to make sure that we're constantly providing them. We don't want to look at a license and go, oh, we're not getting any value out of that. So we kind of keep it on that annual 3-year term is what we've been focusing for the large clients at least.
Okay, awesome. And then he also says, how about WipeDrive mobile? How does the pricing work on this, or this all-in-one suite of tools for various types of endpoints drives?
Great. So WipeDrive mobile is for, of course, mobile devices, right? So phones, tablets, iPads, you name it, we can erase all those mobile devices. And that's done kind of differently. Our main WipeDrive product, to boot up on a laptop or boot up on a server, we have our own operating system in WipeDrive that we boot up into, and we can recognize and erase all those drives and those devices. The WipeDrive mobile side is a Windows application. You set it up, you run it, and then you connect any device you want to, and you just erase that device and get a report back onto your Windows computer. One side note is we've been doing this for 23 years. We've only had 3 devices wiped accidentally in-house, which we applaud ourselves. You don't realize how much is bouncing around in our company, on our network, you name it. But mobile devices is one of those areas that are huge. I don't have the number off the top of my head how many mobile devices are out there. And right now they're just doing an encryption key reset on most of those factory resets. So the potential there is that the data is still, quote unquote, on that device, even though the encryption key has been removed. And let's say 10 years down the road, can you break that encryption? Can you not? There's just that kind of question mark on the factory reset. So a lot of ITADs, a lot of R2 certifications out there for the secondhand market has said, you know what, we want you to erase it and purge those devices. And then from there, you're safe. We don't need to worry about any future kind of exposure or vulnerabilities with those devices. So yeah, WipeDrive Mobile is a great product. We've been using it here a long time. Many years we pulled that one out and got out in the market.
That's great. Yeah, all these things need to be addressed because they're out there. I mean, and they're not going away, and there's just more and more of them all the time.
Well, look at the IoT world. Look at your TV now. Look at your Alexa. Look at your Google Home. Is there storage on that device? What's on it? What is it listening to? What is it recorded? And if someone gets it, is there PHI on that? And as an organization, did you touch that device and then resell it? And under HIPAA laws, you're liable. Anyone that touches that device is liable for that breach. And so all of a sudden, there's a lot of risk with making sure that device can be erased. And Alexas haven't been addressed, Google's, Homes haven't been addressed. Is there a lot of storage on there? Not much, but is there enough that you're vulnerable? And then TVs, just the way we're going, there's going to be a lot of anything with data storage is an issue. And that's where we're on the forefront of just saying, hey, what's coming up? What do we need to address? And what's going to be a headache? How can we solve this for our clients and for the secondhand markets and just home users, MSPs, everyone out there?
I remember back in the day, they had printers. Business class printers were a big issue because they would store these in warehouses with the hard drive still intact, and all the documents that had basically gone through that printer was on that hard drive. It was easily accessible. Yeah.
What year? I think it was like 2011, somewhere around there. There's a report that came out saying, hey, your photocopier has a hard drive with a copy of every photo every copy you've made. And every single industry stopped and said, really? There's a drive in there? Are you sure? And even the leasers, the manufacturers knew this, but the leasers had come off lease. They had no idea. All you had to do was open it up, reach in there, and there's a drive. You plug it in, and there's every photocopy you've had over the last 3 years or 5 years of that lease. And it created a big snafu. I think the photocopy manufacturers have addressed it as far as erasing the file after it's made. But yeah, that was a big issue a couple of years ago.
Wow. Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's gather any other thoughts that you might have. We're going to take a quick break here in anything that we haven't covered as far as wiping drives and what you guys do for that. And right now, if you would like to support this show, I encourage you to go over to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged. And definitely appreciate all those that continuously support us. And what that does is that gets you for about $1 a show. We do 4 or 5 shows a month. That will get you into the super secret Facebook group if you're into that whole thing. And you can get in there and be in a community of nice people that will answer your questions without making you feel stupid, which is what we're all about. And we have a 0 tolerance policy. We don't even play around with that. And we've been running this thing for the last couple of years, and it's been perfectly fine. Everybody has their opinions, and that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. It's just we want everybody to be helped because we all started at a certain spot and we all learn differently and we all learn over time. I learn new things every day, and I encourage those out there. If you're not learning new things every day, just dig a 6-foot grave and call it a day. That's just my opinion. So anyways, you can go to patreon.com/MSP Unplugged and get signed up today. And then just follow the instructions and I will get you in the super secret Facebook group right away. All right. So Paul, with that, is there anything that we haven't covered as far as wiping hard drives? What's going on out there? Maybe anything that we need to be thinking about in our businesses as we're moving along?
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit for the MSPs, and that is this is a potential revenue generator for MSPs to go into your clients' locations and say, hey, we can erase and end of life your IT assets and maybe even resell them and make some profit off those devices. So every company, whether it's 50 employees, 100 or 10 employees, they're going to have a back room with a whole bunch of old computers. So the sooner you address those, the sooner you get them, the price is still higher. Every month that goes by, that price for that device is dropping. So as an MSP, I'd go on site, I'd take a look in their storage down below or their closet, wherever that is, and I'd say, hey, let me process these devices. I'm going to charge you X, Y, and Z for me to process them. I'll give you a nice, beautiful PDF report. It's going to say everything's gone. You can feel rest assured that it's done correctly. And then on my side as an MSP, maybe you take those devices and part of the contract is you go and resell them or you go and put them on the market and make some money off that, some revenue off that. So it's an area that's not addressed properly with most small clients and small businesses. And I think MSPs can really first prove that they're helping their client, they're staying up to date with the latest data issues, at the same time provide a solution that creates some revenue for them on their side.
That's excellent advice, and I encourage everybody to go out there and do that because, yeah, that happens all the time. I know I had a basement full of stuff, and
everyone does.
Finally got rid of most of it, and then started to fill it back up again. So, there's that.
Come back a year later, 2 years later, it'll be full
It's
again.
horrible. I can't believe how much crap I collect, and I get rid of a lot. Normally, if I haven't used something in 6 months, it's gone. But yeah, nowadays
we're a data erasure company. You should see our back room. We have a bunch of devices back there that we go, okay, we're going to process it next month, and we got to process all these devices that we get in. We have to test and run on, and then we have to process and get them out the door. So yeah, everyone has it. Everyone does.
Well, Paul, I appreciate you coming out today, and thank you for bearing with us with my technical difficulties. Fortunately, my stalwart partner, Paco LeBron, took over as usual and was able to start the interview off, so that was great. If people want to get a hold of you or get a hold of your company, where would they go?
Yep, go to WipeDrive.com, or our main company is White Canyon Software, so you can go to WhiteCanyon.com. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, so at Paul Katzoff. Go ahead and message me. I'll put you in touch with the right guys here to help you, or I'm happy to help you as well, and we'll get you up and running on some data erasure on your side.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you coming out and sharing with us today. It's been awesome, and I learned a lot as usual, so that's good.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for having me on MSP Unplugged, and to your audience, thanks for the time. I appreciate you guys listening.
No problem. All right, come join us every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And you can watch a live hangout in the chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Subscribe and hit that notification button so you never miss an episode. They tell me to say that. I don't know why, but just do it. Use your favorite podcasting app to take us with you wherever you go. If you're into that, we have an audio only format, which a lot of people like to listen to in the car on the way to a client. On the way to the grocery store, I don't know, washing dishes, mowing the lawn, all those kinds of things. And we can be in your pocket with you all the time. I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.